I was 15 years old when my own mother locked me out of the house on prom night. Not because I'd broken curfew. Not because I'd done something dangerous or wrong. But because I'd shamed the family by wearing a thrift store dress to the dance instead of an $800 designer gown like my perfect older sister had worn to her prom. My mother told me in front of the neighbors that I was a disappointment, that I'd ruined our family's reputation, and that I wasn't welcome home until I learned to have standards. She literally locked the door in my face at 11 o'clock at night, leaving me standing on the porch in my $30 vintage dress with nowhere to go. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was my mother. She was sobbing, begging me to come home, saying she'd made a terrible mistake. But what she didn't know was that in those 2 weeks, I'd discovered a family secret that would destroy everything. I'd found proof that our perfect, wealthy, status-obsessed family was completely bankrupt, drowning in debt, living a lie. And when I finally came home, it wasn't as the obedient daughter she expected. It was as someone who knew the truth and wasn't afraid to use it. My name is Harper, and this is the story of how being locked out on prom night led me to discover that my perfect family was built on lies, and how the sweetest revenge was simply exposing the truth. Let me take you back to May 2014. I was 15, living in a massive house in Scottsdale, Arizona, with my family. From the outside, we looked perfect. My father, Richard, was a successful businessman. My mother, Linda, was the epitome of a wealthy suburban housewife. Designer clothes, perfect hair, always hosting charity events and country club lunches. My older sister, Sienna, was 18 and everything my mother had ever wanted in a daughter. Beautiful, popular, obsessed with designer brands, studying at an expensive private college. And then there was me. Harper. The middle child. The disappointment. I'd never fit the mold my mother wanted. While Sienna spent hours on makeup and fashion, I preferred reading and studying. While Sienna begged for designer handbags, I saved my allowance and volunteered at the library. While Sienna posted constantly on social media about our perfect life, I questioned why we needed to perform wealth for strangers. My mother hated that about me. She saw my practicality as a personal rejection, my frugality as an embarrassment. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" was a constant refrain in my life. My father was barely present, always working, always on his phone, never involved in what he called women's drama. My younger brother, Tyler, was 12 and mostly ignored by everyone. He and I were close, both of us outsiders in our own family. When prom season arrived, my mother was determined to make it an event. She wanted me to have the perfect prom experience, which to her meant spending obscene amounts of money. She took me to the same expensive boutique where Sienna had bought her prom dress 3 years earlier. The dresses there started at $600 and went up to $2,000. "Pick whichever one you want," my mother said, clearly expecting me to be grateful and excited. But I looked at those dresses and all I could think was, this is insane. $800 for a dress I'll wear for 4 hours? When that money could pay for textbooks, or go into my college fund, or help someone who actually needs it. "Mom, this is too much," I said. "I don't need an expensive dress." Her face tightened. "Harper, this is your prom. This is important. Don't you want to look beautiful?" "I can look beautiful without spending a fortune," I said. I saw some really pretty dresses at the thrift store for like $30. The look on my mother's face was like I'd slapped her. "Absolutely not. You are not wearing a used dress to your prom. What would people think? What would they say about our family? Who cares what they think?" I asked, genuinely confused. "It's my prom, not theirs." We left the boutique without buying anything. My mother was furious, giving me the silent treatment the entire drive home. When we got home, she complained to Sienna, who laughed and said, "Harper's always been weird about money. It's embarrassing." I went to the thrift store the next day with my friend Zoe, and I found the perfect dress. It was a vintage 1950s style dress, deep emerald green, with delicate beading on the bodice. It fit me perfectly. It was elegant and unique and beautiful. And it cost $30. I was so proud of that find. I thought I'd beaten the system, found something perfect without the ridiculous price tag. I should have known my mother would see it differently. Prom night arrived. I got ready in my room, doing my own hair and makeup, putting on my thrift store dress. When I looked in the mirror, I felt beautiful. Genuinely beautiful, in a way that had nothing to do with price tags or designer labels. I walked downstairs, excited to show my family and take pictures before my date arrived. My mother was in the living room with Sienna, who was home from college for the weekend. My father was in his office, as usual. Tyler was playing video games. My mother looked up as I came down the stairs, and her expression changed from neutral to horrified in seconds. "What are you wearing?" she asked, her voice sharp. "My prom dress," I said, confused by her tone. "Isn't it pretty? I found it at—" "That's from a thrift store," she interrupted, standing up. "You're wearing a used dress. To your prom." "Yes, and it's beautiful," I said, trying to stay positive. "It was only $30 and it's vintage and—" $30? My mother's voice was getting louder. "You're going to your prom in a $30 dress when I offered to buy you whatever you wanted." "I didn't want to spend that much money on—" "This isn't about money," she shouted. "This is about standards. This is about representing this family properly. What are people going to think when they see you in that cheap dress?" Sienna laughed from the couch. "Oh my God, Harper, you're actually wearing a used dress? That's so embarrassing. People are going to think we're poor." "We're not poor," I said, feeling defensive now. "And there's nothing wrong with thrift stores. This dress is nice." "It's not about nice," my mother said coldly. "It's about what it says about us. You wearing that dress says that we can't afford to dress you properly. It says that we don't have standards. It makes us look bad." I felt tears starting to form, but I pushed them back. This is my prom. My dress. Why does it matter what other people think? "Because reputation matters," my mother said. "Because we have a position in this community. Because I have worked very hard to build our family's image, and I will not have you destroy it by looking like you shop at Goodwill." "I did shop at Goodwill," I said quietly. "And there's nothing wrong with that." My mother's face went red. "Go upstairs and change. Now. I'll drive you to the boutique right now and we'll buy a proper dress." "No," I said, and my voice was shaking but firm. "I'm wearing this dress. My date is going to be here in 20 minutes, and I'm wearing this dress." "Then you're not going to prom," my mother said. We stared at each other, locked in a battle of wills. My father appeared in the doorway of his office, looking annoyed at the noise. "What's going on? Your daughter is insisting on wearing a thrift store dress to her prom and making us look like we can't afford to dress her," my mother said. My father glanced at me, barely looking at the dress. "Linda, it's fine. Let her wear what she wants." For a moment, I thought he was on my side. But then he added, "I have a conference call in 10 minutes. Can you keep it down?" And he disappeared back into his office. My mother's jaw clenched. She looked at me with pure contempt. "Fine. Wear your cheap dress. Go to your prom. But don't expect me to take pictures or celebrate this. You've made your choice." My date arrived, a sweet guy named Connor from my English class. We took pictures, but my mother refused to participate, staying in the kitchen with Sienna. Tyler took a few photos with his phone and whispered, "You look really pretty, Harper. Don't listen to Mom." I went to prom, and despite the awful scene at home, I had a wonderful time. The dance was fun, the music was great, my friends loved my dress. Multiple people complimented it, asking where I got it. When I said it was vintage from a thrift store, they thought that was cool and creative. No one thought it was embarrassing. No one thought it made me look poor. For a few hours, I forgot about my mother's anger and just enjoyed being 15 at my first prom. But when Connor dropped me off at home at 11 o'clock, everything fell apart. My mother was waiting on the front porch. So was Sienna. And several of our neighbors were outside, enjoying the warm evening, walking dogs, chatting on their lawns. My mother had an audience, and she was going to use it. "Harper," she said loudly as I walked up the driveway, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "We need to talk about what you did tonight." "What I did?" I asked, confused. "I went to prom." "That's it." "You went to prom looking like a homeless person," my mother said, and I heard one of the neighbors gasp. "You wore a thrift store dress and made this family look like we can't afford to clothe you properly. You embarrassed us. You shamed us in front of the entire school community." I felt my face burning. She was doing this in front of the neighbors on purpose, performing her outrage for an audience. "Mom, can we talk about this inside?" I asked quietly. "No," she said. "Because you're not coming inside. Not until you learn to have standards. Not until you learn to respect this family and our reputation." I stared at her, not understanding. "What? You want to act like you're poor? You want to dress like you have no family supporting you? Fine. You can find out what that's really like. You're not welcome in this house until you apologize and promise to do better." She stepped inside and started to close the door. I rushed forward, trying to stop her. "Mom, wait, you can't be serious. You're locking me out." "I'm teaching you a lesson," she said coldly. And she shut the door in my face. I heard the deadbolt click. I stood there in shock, still wearing my prom dress, my small purse in my hand. I knocked on the door. "Mom, please. Let me in. I'm sorry, okay? Just let me in." No response. I knocked harder. "Dad. Tyler. Someone please open the door." A window on the second floor opened, and Sienna leaned out. "Maybe now you'll learn your lesson, Harper. Maybe now you'll understand that actions have consequences. You embarrassed Mom, and you embarrassed all of us. You deserve this." She closed the window. I looked around and saw neighbors watching, some looking concerned, others looking away awkwardly. I felt humiliation wash over me, but also a growing anger. My mother had just locked me out of the house at 11 at night because I wore a $30 dress. The cruelty of it, the absurdity of it, was overwhelming. I tried calling my father. No answer. I tried texting. No response. I called my mother. She declined the call. I stood on that porch for 20 minutes, trying every way I could think of to get someone to let me in. Nothing worked. Finally, I did the only thing I could think of. I walked 3 blocks to my best friend Zoe's house and knocked on the door. Zoe's mom, Patricia, answered in her bathrobe, looking surprised. "Harper, what are you doing here? Wasn't prom tonight?" And I burst into tears. I told her everything. About the dress, about my mother's reaction, about being locked out. Patricia's face went from surprised to horrified to furious. "She locked you out? At 11 at night? Over a dress?" She pulled me inside immediately. "Zoe, come down here." Zoe appeared, still in her pajamas, and when she saw me crying in my prom dress, she ran down and hugged me. "Patricia called my house." My mother answered. I could hear Patricia's side of the conversation, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Linda, this is Patricia Chen. Harper is at my house. She says you locked her out." "Yes, I understand you're upset, but she's 15 years old. You can't lock a child out of the house at night. I don't care what she wore to prom, Linda. This is not appropriate parenting." "Fine. She'll stay here tonight then. But we're going to talk about this tomorrow." Patricia hung up and looked at me with sympathy. "You can stay here as long as you need, sweetheart. Let me make up the guest room." That night, lying in Zoe's guest room, still in my prom dress because I had no other clothes, I felt something shift inside me. Not just hurt or sadness. Anger. Real, justified anger at my mother's cruelty, at my father's indifference, at my sister's mockery. They'd humiliated me publicly over a dress. Over $30. Over their obsession with appearances and status. And for the first time in my life, I started to question everything about my family. The next few days were surreal. I stayed at Zoe's house. Patricia called my parents multiple times, but my mother refused to let me come home. She needs to learn her lesson, my mother kept saying. She needs to understand that there are consequences for embarrassing the family. My father sent me one text. Your mother is very upset. Give her some time to cool down. This will blow over. But it didn't blow over. Days passed. I went to school, came back to Zoe's house. Patricia bought me some basic clothes and toiletries. Zoe shared her things with me. Her family treated me with more kindness in those few days than my own family had shown me in months. A week went by. My mother still wouldn't let me come home. She told Patricia that I could come back when I was ready to apologize and commit to better behavior. I was furious. Apologize for what? For being practical. For not wanting to waste money? For having different values than her? Zoe's parents started talking about calling Child Protective Services. This is abandonment, Patricia said. She can't just kick you out because she doesn't like your dress. But I begged them not to. I didn't want to make things worse. I didn't want to be put in foster care. I just wanted my mother to realize how insane she was being and let me come home. On day 8 of my exile, I realized I needed some things from home. School supplies, more clothes, my laptop for homework. Patricia offered to take me to the house when she knew my parents would be at work. We used the hidden spare key to get in. The house was exactly as I'd left it. My prom corsage, dried and dead, was still on the kitchen counter where I'd left it before the dance. My room was untouched. It was like I'd never existed, like my absence didn't matter at all. I was packing a bag of clothes when I noticed something. My father's home office door was slightly open. That door was always locked. Always. My father was obsessive about his privacy, about keeping his work separate. He never let anyone in that office. But today, the door was open. I should have just grabbed my things and left. But something made me walk over to that office. Curiosity. Anger. A sense that something was wrong in this house beyond just my mother's cruelty. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The office was a mess, which was unusual. My father was normally meticulously organized. Papers were scattered across the desk. File folders were stacked haphazardly. And on top of the desk, in plain view, were bank statements. I knew I shouldn't look. I knew it was an invasion of privacy. But I looked anyway. And what I saw made my blood run cold. The bank statement showed a balance of negative $12,847. There were overdraft fees, bounced check fees, insufficient funds notices. I grabbed another paper. A credit card statement with a balance of $87,432 and a minimum payment that was 3 months overdue. Another credit card, $56,000 in debt. Another, $43,000. I started going through the papers more frantically now, my heart pounding. Mortgage statements showing 3 months of missed payments and a foreclosure warning. A notice from the bank about repossessing my mother's Mercedes. A letter from Sienna's college saying that unless the outstanding tuition balance of $35,000 was paid immediately, she would be withdrawn from classes. My family was broke. Not just struggling. Completely, utterly bankrupt. I found more documents. My father's business had failed 6 months ago. He'd been trying to keep it afloat with personal credit cards and loans, but it had collapsed anyway. He'd lost everything. The house, the cars, the lifestyle, all of it was being held together by debt and lies. And my mother knew. I found emails between my parents, printed out and filed. My father begging my mother to stop spending, to cut back, to face reality. My mother responding that they needed to maintain appearances, or they'd lose their social standing. That they couldn't let people know they were struggling. That image was everything. There was an email from just 2 weeks ago, right before prom. My father writing, "Linda, We cannot afford an $800 prom dress. We can barely afford groceries. Please be reasonable. My mother's response: I will not have our daughter looking poor at her prom. We'll put it on the credit card. We'll figure it out. Except I hadn't let her buy that dress. I'd bought my own dress for $30. And she'd been so angry, so humiliated, not because I'd actually embarrassed the family, but because my frugality had highlighted the financial crisis she was desperately trying to hide. I stood in that office, surrounded by evidence of my family's lies, and I felt something click into place. Everything made sense now. My mother's obsession with appearances. Her fury at my thrift store dress. Her need to perform wealth for the neighbors. She wasn't angry because I'd embarrassed her. She was angry because I'd accidentally exposed the truth. We couldn't afford the lifestyle she was pretending to have. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Every bank statement, every credit card bill, every foreclosure notice, every email. I didn't know exactly why I was documenting everything, but some instinct told me I'd need this evidence. I'd need proof of what I'd discovered. I took over 100 photos, making sure every detail was clear and readable. When I was done, I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I grabbed my clothes and school supplies and left the house, my mind racing. Patricia drove me back to her house, asking if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just tired. But I wasn't fine. I was angry. Furious. My mother had locked me out of the house, had publicly humiliated me, had abandoned me for over a week, all because I'd worn a $30 dress. All because I'd threatened her carefully constructed lie of wealth and status. And the whole time, she'd been drowning in debt, spending money she didn't have, maintaining an image that was completely false. The hypocrisy was staggering. That night, I lay in Zoe's guest room and made a decision. I wasn't going to let my mother control this narrative anymore. I wasn't going to apologize for being practical while she spent us into bankruptcy. I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. I was going to protect myself. And if that meant using the information I'd found, then so be it. On day 14 of being locked out, my phone rang. It was my mother. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello. Harper. My mother's voice was thick with tears. Harper, baby, please come home. I was so shocked I almost dropped the phone. What? I made a mistake, she sobbed. I was too harsh. I was angry and I overreacted. Please come home. We miss you. I miss you. I sat up in bed, my mind racing. 2 weeks of silence, of refusing to let me come home, and now suddenly she missed me? Why now? I asked coldly. What changed? I've had time to think, she said. And I realize I was wrong. You're my daughter. You belong at home. Please come back. She was lying. I could hear it in her voice. This wasn't about missing me or realizing she was wrong. Something had changed, something had happened, and she needed me back for some reason. I'll think about it, I said. Harper, please. I hung up. She called back immediately. I didn't answer. She called 5 more times that night. I ignored all of them. The next morning, my father called. Harper, you need to come home, he said, his voice tense. This has gone on long enough. Your mother is very upset. She's the one who locked me out, I said. For 2 weeks. Over a dress. I know, and that wasn't right. But you need to come home now. We need to talk. As a family. About what? I asked. There was a long pause. Just come home. Please. I knew what this was about. They'd realized I'd been in the house. They'd realized someone had been in my father's office. They were panicking, wondering if I'd seen anything. Good. Let them panic. I'll come home, I said. But on my conditions. What conditions? My father asked warily. First, I want my own room with a lock on the door that only I have the key to. Second, I want a written apology from Mom for locking me out. Third, I want a guarantee that my college fund hasn't been touched and won't be touched. And fourth, I want the truth about our financial situation. Silence. Then, we'll discuss this when you get home. No, I said firmly. We'll agree to this before I come home. Or I don't come home at all. Patricia and her husband have already talked about letting me stay here long term. I have options, Dad. You need me more than I need you right now. Another long silence. I could hear him breathing, could almost hear him calculating. Fine, he finally said. Fine. Come home tonight. We'll talk. I packed my few belongings and thanked Zoe's family profusely. Patricia hugged me tight. If you need anything at all, you call us. You can come back here any time. You understand. I understand, I said. Thank you for everything. She drove me home. When we pulled up to the house, my mother was waiting at the door, her face blotchy from crying. She rushed out as I got out of the car. Harper, oh Harper, I'm so sorry. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back. Don't, I said quietly. She froze, hurt flashing across her face. Harper, please, I know I made a mistake. We need to talk, I said. Inside. As a family. I walked past her into the house. My father was in the living room. Sienna was there too, home from college, looking uncomfortable. Tyler ran up and hugged me. I missed you, he whispered. I'm glad you're back. I missed you too, buddy, I said, hugging him back. Then I turned to my parents. Everyone sit down. We're going to have a conversation, and we're going to be honest for once. My mother looked at my father nervously. They sat on the couch. Sienna sat in the armchair. Tyler sat next to me. I know, I said simply. My father's face went pale. Know what? I know about the bankruptcy. I know about the debt. I know about the foreclosure. I know the business failed. I know we're broke. I know everything. My mother gasped. You went through your father's office? How dare you? How dare I? I interrupted, my voice rising. How dare I? You locked me out of the house for 2 weeks because I wore a $30 dress. And you want to talk about how dare I? That's different. It's not different. I shouted. You humiliated me in front of the neighbors because you said I made us look poor. But we are poor. We're worse than poor. We're drowning in debt. You were just mad because I accidentally told the truth. My father put his head in his hands. Sienna looked confused. What are you talking about? We're not broke. Yes, we are, I said, looking at her. Dad's business failed. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. Your college tuition hasn't been paid. Mom's car is about to be repossessed. We have over $200,000 in credit card debt. We're completely bankrupt. Sienna turned to our parents, her face shocked. Is that true? My mother was crying. We were going to tell you. When? Sienna demanded. When I got kicked out of school for non-payment. We're handling it, my father said weakly. We're working on a plan. Your plan was to keep spending money you don't have and hope no one noticed, I said. Your plan was to maintain appearances while everything collapsed. And when I threatened that appearance by wearing a cheap dress, you threw me out. I was trying to protect our family's reputation, my mother said through tears. I was trying to maintain our standing in the community. Why? I asked. Why does that matter more than the truth? Why does that matter more than me? She didn't have an answer. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to stay here, in my room, with a lock on my door. You're going to leave my college fund alone, whatever's left of it. You're going to stop pretending we're wealthy and start dealing with reality. And you're never, ever going to lock me out or punish me for being practical again. Do you understand? My father nodded slowly. Yes. Okay. Yes. My mother was still crying. Harper, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I couldn't face people knowing we'd failed. I couldn't face the judgment. So you made me face it instead, I said quietly. You judged me, humiliated me, abandoned me, all to protect your image. Do you understand how messed up that is? She nodded, sobbing. I felt no satisfaction in her tears. Just exhaustion. I'm going to my room, I said. Don't bother me tonight. I went upstairs, Tyler following me. When we got to my room, he hugged me again. I'm really glad you're back, he said. It was awful here without you. Mom cried all the time and Dad was angry and Sienna kept asking what was going on. It's going to be okay, I told him, even though I wasn't sure I believed it. We'll figure it out. That night, I lay in my bed, in my own room, and I didn't feel victorious. I felt sad. Sad that my family was so broken. Sad that appearances had mattered more than love. Sad that I'd had to fight so hard just to be heard. But I also felt something else. Strength. I'd stood up for myself. I'd demanded the truth. I'd refused to accept their treatment of me. And that was something. The next few months were difficult. My father declared bankruptcy. We lost the house and moved to a small rental in a less expensive neighborhood. My mother had a breakdown, struggling to cope with the loss of status and the judgment from her former friends. Sienna had to transfer to a community college. It was humbling and painful for all of them. But for me and Tyler, it was almost a relief. No more pretending. No more performing wealth we didn't have. Just reality, honest and simple. I got a part-time job to help with expenses. I saved every penny for college. And I watched my family slowly start to rebuild, this time on honesty instead of lies. Years passed. I graduated high school with honors and got a full scholarship to Arizona State University. I studied journalism, driven by a desire to uncover truth and expose hypocrisy. My mother and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, painfully. She went to therapy and started to understand how her obsession with status had damaged our family. She apologized, really apologized, for locking me out, for valuing appearances over her own daughter. It took years, but we eventually found our way to forgiveness. My father worked hard to rebuild his career, this time with more realistic expectations. Sienna graduated from community college and got a good job, humbled by the experience of losing everything. Tyler grew up watching all of this, learning lessons about what really matters. And me. I became an investigative journalist specializing in financial fraud and family dynamics. I wrote articles about the pressure to maintain appearances, about families destroyed by debt and status obsession, about the cost of living beyond your means. When I was 25, I wrote a long-form article for a major magazine titled, "The $30 Dress That Exposed My Family's $200,000 Lie." I changed names and some identifying details, but anyone who knew my family would recognize the story. I wrote about being locked out on prom night, about discovering the bankruptcy, about the years of pretending and performing and lying, about the damage that obsession with status can do to families, about how sometimes the kindest thing you can do is tell the truth, even when it's ugly. The article went viral. It was shared millions of times. People commented with their own stories of family financial secrets, of being judged for being practical, of the pressure to appear wealthy. It sparked a national conversation about debt, status, and authenticity. My mother called me the day the article published. I braced myself for anger, for accusations of betrayal. But instead she said, "I read your article. Every word. And you were right. About all of it. I'm so sorry, Harper. I'm so proud of the woman you've become, despite everything I put you through." "Thanks, Mom," I said, tears in my eyes. "That means a lot. I know some people will recognize our story," she said. "I know I'll face judgment. But I deserve it. And maybe our story will help someone else avoid the mistakes we made." She was right. Some people in our old community did recognize the story. My mother faced questions and awkward conversations. Some of her former friends were judgmental, but others reached out with their own stories of financial struggle, of the pressure to keep up appearances. And my mother, for the first time in her life, was honest with them. She admitted the bankruptcy, the debt, the years of pretending. And in that honesty, she found real friendships, based on truth instead of performance. My article led to speaking engagements. I talked at high schools and colleges about financial literacy, about the danger of debt, about the importance of living authentically. I shared my story of being locked out over a $30 dress, and students gasped and related and understood. I helped young people understand that their worth isn't determined by what they wear or what they own. That practicality isn't something to be ashamed of. That sometimes being different from your family is the healthiest thing you can be. I also started a non-profit organization helping families dealing with financial crisis and bankruptcy. We provided counseling, resources, and support for families trying to rebuild after financial collapse. We helped parents talk to their children honestly about money. We helped families prioritize relationships over appearances. Every family we helped felt like honoring that 15-year-old girl in the thrift store dress who'd refused to apologize for being practical. Today, I'm 25 years old. I have a career I love, exposing truth and helping people. I have a relationship with my family that's honest and real, built on years of hard work and forgiveness. I have a closet full of thrift store finds that I wear with pride. And I have a framed photo on my desk, me at 15, in my emerald green vintage dress, smiling at my prom. That dress represents everything I've become. Practical, authentic, unashamed, strong enough to stand up for my values even when it costs me, brave enough to tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable. That $30 dress was the best investment I ever made. Not because it was cheap, but because it revealed the truth. It exposed my family's lies. It forced us to face reality. It taught me that I didn't need expensive things to have value. And it gave me a story that would eventually help thousands of other people facing similar struggles. My mother locked me out on prom night because she thought I'd shamed the family. But the real shame was never the dress. It was the lies, the debt, the obsession with appearances over authenticity. And when I exposed those lies, when I told the truth about what really happened, I didn't shame my family. I freed us. Freed us from the exhausting performance of wealth we didn't have. Freed us from the judgment and pressure of maintaining an image. Freed us to be real, honest, imperfect, and ultimately happier. That's the real ending to my story. Not revenge, though the public exposure felt like justice. Not reconciliation, though we did eventually rebuild our relationships. The real ending is this. I learned that truth is more valuable than appearance. That authenticity is more important than status. That a $30 dress worn with confidence is worth more than an $800 dress worn with shame. And I learned that sometimes, being locked out is the first step to finding your way home. Not to the house you left, but to yourself. To your values. To your truth. To the person you were always meant to be. My name is Harper Morrison, and I'm the girl who got locked out on prom night for wearing a thrift store dress. And I'm also the woman who turned that experience into a career exposing truth, helping families, and teaching people that your worth has nothing to do with your price tag. To my mother who locked me out, thank you for teaching me what not to value. To Patricia and her family who took me in, thank you for showing me what real kindness looks like. To that $30 dress, thank you for being exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. And to everyone out there facing pressure to be something you're not, to spend money you don't have, to maintain appearances that aren't real, you don't have to. You can choose authenticity. You can choose truth. You can choose yourself. Even if it means getting locked out. Even if it means standing alone. Even if it means wearing the $30 dress when everyone expects the $800 one. Because in the end, the only person you need to impress is yourself. The only standard you need to meet is your own. And the only reputation that matters is the one you build on truth, not lies. That's what I learned at 15. And that's what I'm still learning today. Choose truth. Choose authenticity. Choose yourself. Always.